Alrighty, good morning, good morning, good morning. It is morning coffee, your daily dose of conservative talk here on TikTok. From your venerable host, James Paul Von Helton, Master of the Mystic Arts, Sorcerer Supreme, Demon Slayer, and part-time Hurricane Destroyer, and now Bubble Burster. You're welcome. Anyways, in the media news this morning, known admitted communist Chris Evans has been invited back to the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for those of you that don't know. And after repeated attempts of him of them trying to get him back and him saying no, believe it or not. So I got to give him kudos for that, I guess. But I just have this problem with a known admitted communist playing the part of Captain America. Call me crazy, but I just have a little problem with that. And now they've asked him to come back. Apparently they've asked him to come back numerous times, and he kept saying no, so I have to give him props for that. But they finally, I guess, give him an offer he couldn't refuse, and so now he's back in the MCU again. I don't know if he'll be playing Captain America. I don't think so, because I think the whole Captain America arc is kind of played through, seeing as how he was an old man in the last version there. Nevertheless, now you say, well, Bon, how do you know Chris Evans is a known admitted communist? Because he said so on Twitter. he said so on Twitter. He didn't make no bones about it. He made it abundantly clear what he was. And the actor that played the Incredible Hulk, Mark Ruffalo, actually come back in right behind him and said the same damn thing. So you got two known admitted communists, Mark Ruffalo and Chris Evans, both in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, both played in the Avengers movie. Mark Ruffalo played as the Hulk, and Chris Evans plays as Captain America. Both of them admitted on Twitter in front of millions that they are known admitted communists. Yeah, for real. Isn't that crazy? Here's the part that stuns me, though. We can't find a patriotic American actor to play Captain America. Why? We couldn't find somebody that was a patriotic American to play Captain America. We had to have a known admitted communist. I don't understand. Help me to understand, Feige. For those of you who don't know, Feige is the director of the MCU. Help me to understand, Feige, why you couldn't have found a patriotic American to play Captain America. Explain it to me. I'd love to know. See, folks, for what you don't know, I used to deal with Marvel. Not Marvel directly, but I dealt with Warner Brothers and Paramount and Universal and all these. Well, no, I did do some stuff with Marvel directly. I'm sorry, I correct myself. But anyway, irregardless, I used to deal with these people all the time. And so and when Feige came on board, I even told them, I said, beware, this is not going to end well. And it didn't. And it didn't. Oh, and by the way, Gunn's DCU, DC Comics, his shit's going down in flames too, I understand. Geeks and Gamers is reporting that Peter Gunn's DCU is going down in flames with all hands. Folks, you can't have communists playing patriotic Americans from the comic books, okay? It just nobody's going to buy that shit. Well, nobody that's knowledgeable, let me rephrase, because you got hardcore fans out there of Captain America and Spider-Man and the Incredible Hulk and all these cartoon characters and comic book characters, and we know who these characters are. We know that they're patriotic Americans, or at least American, right? And we know that a Spider-Man, for example, he's even got a slogan: with great power comes great responsibility. Okay. We know these things because, some of them, like myself, grew up with these comic book characters, right? And so we know them. And so, having Chris Evans play the Human Torch, that was bad enough. But then they brought him in to play Captain America as well, and it's like, man, you know. But see, I'm not in charge. That's the problem. Because if I was in charge, and somebody that actually knows these characters in these comic books, things would have been a whole lot different, and it would have been a whole lot better. Now, you say, well, Bond, Endgame, and whatnot, and the Avengers movies, they ended up being they ended up being pretty good, because admittedly Evans is a good actor, but that's the only reason they ended up good. You have a communist trying to play the part of a patriotic American, and he pulled it off, but that's not the point. The point is that why couldn't we have just gotten a patriotic American instead? Okay, Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange, who we know is an American, who we know lives in America. New York City, precisely. We know this. It's in the comics. It's been there for years and years and years and years and years. But they couldn't get an American to play Stephen Strange, Doctor Strange. They had to get somebody from Great Britain. Why? Why did they do this shit? Why? Why do they do that? We know that Dr. Stephen Strange is an American, but they get a British dude to do it? David Cumberbatch is not American, folks. He's British. Why do they do that shit? Why, Feige? Why are you doing that shit? And since we're on the subject, Feige, was you the one that kicked me out of the opportunity to play the Wolverine? Just asking, since I've got you on the mic here. Just asking. Anyways, well, Vaughn, are you just about hurt because of Wolverine? No, it has nothing to do with that. It's the fact that, we should be putting the right people in the right job. For example, Patrick Stewart playing Charles Xavier. Perfect fit. Guess who did it? Me. I was the one that suggested Patrick Stewart to play Charles Xavier. And they weren't even going to pick Patrick Stewart. They were going to pick some guy named Ben. They weren't even going to pick Patrick Stewart. And I said no. I held their feet to the fire. I said no, Patrick Stewart is Charles Xavier. And it ended up being a huge success, didn't it? Yeah, the X-Men movies with Charles Xavier, with Patrick Stewart in them ended up making blockbusters. Okay. Another thing, Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Including the alcohol, including the drugs. Because if you'll remember in the comics, Tony Stark actually has a problem with alcohol and drugs. Or he did for a while. Okay. So Robert Downey Jr. really was Tony Stark, really is Tony Stark, and so he was a perfect fit for that character, okay? And so, who picked Robert Downey Jr.? Oh, that was me. They say, well, Vaughn, you didn't do shit. No, that was me, and I'll tell you how I know. Because Robert Downey Jr. was in rehab for drugs and alcohol, and they weren't going to pick him. They were not going to pick him at all. And I held their feet to the fire and I said, no, Robert Downey Jr. is the one you want for Iron Man. That was me that did that. Not somebody else. I don't give a damn what the internet tells you. That was me that did that. All right, so, those are two success stories that I can actually, put under my belt. Now, the thing of it is, though, obviously on the internet I get no recognition for it. And that's fine. I don't give a shit. Because I know what I did. And they know what I did. So that's all that matters. But anyway, the point being, putting the right people in the right roles is important. It's very important. Now, the Doctor Strange movies came off pretty good. Cumberbatch does a pretty good job portraying himself as an American. He still hasn't got the New York shit down right, though. But other than that, he's an American. He come off seemingly like an American. He did a pretty good job, I gotta say. But I mean, he's not a New Yorker. He's not an American, and so therefore, it didn't really. Anyway, point being, Bringing back Chris Evans, I don't think is a good idea. When Chris Evans rejected you, the numerous times that he did, you should have took it as a hint. Because I think bringing him back is not a good idea. That's just my spy opinion, well, Vaughn, what about Mark Ruffalo? Because he was right there in that same thread agreeing with everything that Evans said. Yeah, I know. I was there. I saw the whole thing live. I was there on Twitter live when Chris Evans admitted to being a communist, and Mark Ruffalo come right in behind him and also admitted to being a communist. I was there, saw the thread. I don't know if the thread's been taken down. As far as I know, the thread's still there. But I was there for that. Live and in person. Okay, so it's not misinformation, TikTok. Sorry, not misinformation. I was there. I saw the shit myself, where he openly admitted to being a communist. Now, likewise, Bruce Springsteen has come out of the closet as an openly admitted communist. James Taylor has openly come out as an admitted communist. And you say, well, Vaughn, what in the fuck is going on? Well, good question. I guess confession is good for the soul, and so they're all confessing. But anyway, the point is, I was there for those events where they all admitted, to what their political views were. And that's fine. I don't give a fuck. But the point is, if we're going to have somebody play Captain America, it should have been a patriotic American. Now you say, well, Vaughn, now that we have AI, we can replace Chris Evans in those movies with a real patriot. Yes, we can. Which was going to be my next point. Now that we have this AI technology, this deep fake technology, we can literally take Chris Evans out of the Avengers movie and Captain America movie and replace him with an actual actor that is a patriotic American. Yes, we can. We can do that. And I think we should do that, in my humble opinion. I think we should do that. But that's just me. Anyways, I thought I would report, because it is news, and it is kind of important if you're into the Marvel movies and the DC movies. But yeah, Chris Gunn's DCU, according to Geeks and Gamers, his DCU is going down in flames with all hands. The MCU has had setback after setback after setback, which I accurately predicted, by the way. Thank you very much. So, yeah, they're struggling now. They did real good at first, but now they're struggling. And, they're struggling because they won't listen to me. Whenever people don't listen to me, things go to shit. What do you want me to say? I got to tell the truth, right? Listen to me, make tons of money. Don't listen to me, everything goes to shit. And I got the DCU and the MCU to prove it. But oh well. Anyways, y'all have a wonderful day and a blessed tomorrow. Bye.